Hi, I'm Crafty Patti. In my last video, I showed you how to properly cut your fabric strips on the bias. Now I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful oval fabric covered rope bowl. I will have a list of all the supplies and a link to the video on how to cut the strips in the description box below. For those that don't know how to find that, it's that little tiny down arrow on the right and just below the video, or it might say the words show more. So let's get to it. Today I'm using the cotton sash cord, and this particular one is from Ace. I did buy this from a local hardware store. If you can't find anything like this, then I will leave a link in the description box below where you can find cotton cord. This one here is a synthetic cord, and I'm using 1/4 inch, and this one comes in a 100-foot length or 0.6 centimeters by 30.4 centimeters. I do unwind all my cording from the hank so it doesn't cause knots and unnecessarily pulling when you're trying to make your bowl. And this is what you don't want is weight pulling like this. So if you just make sure it's all untangled and nice and loose, then you're ready to go. What I like to do to start my projects, I like to wrap the end with a little bit of Scotch tape, just so it's easier, so you don't have to deal with all this raveling and fraying. Wrap it around the end. And then we don't need all of that Scotch tape on there, so what I do is I just feel with my finger where it is, and I'm just going to leave only like less than a 1/4 inch on there, so I'm just going to cut the rest off. And that will hold it nice and firm while you're starting your basket. Now, I don't have a deluxe quilting machine. I've just got a basic machine. Good machine is a Husqvarna, but it doesn't have the extended bed for doing quilting. So what I've done is I've just grabbed some wood frames and some paper so it's level with my sewing machine. You want to keep your bowls flat, otherwise you're going to get a dome on the bottom of your basket or your bowl. I picked up a set of 12 little clips from the dollar store for $1.50, and they've got a nice long edge, and that's what's going to help to hold our fabric on our cord while we're wrapping it around and sewing at the same time. To get yourself started with your first piece of fabric, take your cording and your fabric so it's parallel together. Now we're going to overlap it and bring it up so it's halfway down the material like so. So I'm just going to wrap that around the back. I'm going to fold that little end down, tuck it in again on the side there, and now we're just going to wrap it really tightly to get the wrap started. Now I'm just going to tack this with the sewing machine just on the end to hold this in place. Now that we have that nice and secure, we don't have to worry about that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're just going to twist this around. And what I'm doing is I'm only covering about half of the row underneath. So continue to twist that around. And once I've got a little bit down the rope here, I'm going to place my little clip on there. I like to place it underneath my presser foot, put the needle down, and then I've got something to hold it. So now I can come back in and I can start wrapping some more. Now what I'm going to try to show you is if you let it hang down, you're not doing this big flip over every time, it'll wrap around by itself. So let's take off a little clip, and if you just pull it down, you can just keep going around and around, and you don't have to flip over that material. It'll wrap around by itself. That'll go faster for you. And just put on your little clip when you're done. Take out your needle, move it along. You don't really have to put the needle down, just put the presser foot down, which is probably enough. And keep going. And now we're at the end of our first wrapping. So now let's go and add our next one. Wrap that one all the way around. And now we're going to come in and I'm going to use the one that we sewed together. So just make sure that your right side is on top. Bring up the next one. This time I'm going to just wrap it so it's sitting straight up and down. Get that little end wrapped under, and we're just going to make sure we wrap around tightly on those first couple rounds just to make sure that it's secure. And then once we've got a good tight wrap there, then we can start wrapping it down. Now that you've done some wrapping on your cord, we're ready to set our sewing machine on zigzag. So choose your zigzag stitch. This is mine. And for my width, I'm going to go all the way up as far as I can go. For me, it's 5.5. And then for my length stitch, I'm going to set it on 4. So I'm going to fold it in half, approximately 4 to 5 inches. And then I'm going to pop this end underneath the pressure foot. And you always want the cording that's coming off your strand of your rope on the right hand side. So we're going to put this underneath the presser foot. And I'm going to line up the middle of this with the middle of my presser foot. I'm just going to use my scissors to help it along, to push it in. Do you want it far enough back that it will grab? So I'm just going to do the first few stitches by using my hand, not my foot pedal, to get it started. And then backspace, back stitch, not backspace, sorry. I'm just doing this manually for now. And now I can come forward again. So I'm just making sure that these are right together, and we'll go along to the bottom now. I'll just get ready to make our turn. So I've brought my end of my cord up, so it's tucked right around the end here. Go to the end here. And then keep your needle to the right side. We're going to lift up our presser foot and we're going to pivot this so we can get around our corner. Now we're going to sew a little bit more, holding it all together. Presser foot up, pivot it around, and make sure that this is nice and tight. I'm going to give it just a little bit of a push with my scissors to make sure that when that's sewing, it's sewing through both sides. Let's cut off our ends here. And we're ready to come down our next side here. Making sure that you're catching both this one and this one. And if you watch your little center of your foot, making sure that stays in the center of your two pieces, then you should catch both sides. Getting ready to do our corner again. Lift the presser foot, turn it around a little bit, drop, sew your corner, lift, turn, and sew. Now you see, I don't know if you caught me there, but you've always got to make sure that the needle is on the right hand side, and I didn't. I wasn't paying attention. So we'll just make sure that we go back here a bit. Because I want to make sure I catch both sides. Okay, now we'll pivot. Once you get a few more rows in here, then you can kind of guide it around with your hand without having to lift the presser foot once you get a little bit more advanced. So for me, I'm going to just keep pulling this and so slowly. Once you get about 6 inches away, then grab your next piece of material and start wrapping your cord again. So keep sewing around and wrapping as you go. While I'm sewing, you notice how I'm keeping my hand nice and flat here. This will help to keep your bottom of your basket flat so it doesn't start curving up. So I've always got my hand placed flat here, and I'm not pulling on this cord. I'm just letting it rest on my finger as I go along, or my thumb. I'm using my hand to guide it around the corners. I'm not pulling on this cording at all. I'm just letting it pull in. Then it's a good idea to stop sewing. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to back stitch, I'm going to take it off the sewing machine. And the reason I'm going to do that is because the middle part here is the hardest part to sew around the tight corners. Once you get to the outside here, it's much easier to make sure that you grab both sides. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pull on this and inspect it to see if I've missed anywhere where I have not sewn. So I've missed a spot right there. So the rest of it, I did pretty good. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to just make sure that that's good and secure right in that section there. Pop it back in where we left off. And start sewing, back stitch. And you're ready to go again. I decided to go a little tiny bit wider, so I'm now going to go about 7 inches for my base, which is about 18 centimeters. So I'm just going to go around a couple more times, and then we'll start our sides. I'm just going to put a sewing pin in here, and that will just give me a guide to let me know this is where I'm starting to form my sides. So I want a gentle curve on the first part of my basket. So I'm not going to lift it all the way up. I'm only going to lift it with having just my fingers underneath this area here. So let's go around with just starting to lift, and we'll go around once. So I've gone around once with just my 3 fingers underneath. Now I'm going to lift a bit further, bringing my whole hand a little bit further in. So now we're going to go around again until I come back to my point. Back to my starting point. Now I'm going to lift it all the way up so it's actually touching the side of my sewing machine. And around we go. So keep sewing around until you've got about 3 inches or about 8 centimeters, and depending on the height that you want for your basket, and then we'll start making our fun little handles. So continue around in the same manner. So you probably won't finish your whole basket without having to put more thread into your bobbin. So all you have to do is just back stitch. Take it off the machine, rethread your bobbin, and start sewing again. I'm coming to the end of my first bunch of rope that I had, and that was left over from another bowl I had done, and I had 44 feet here. So I'm going to have to add on to this because I want to make this larger still. So I'm going to wrap up this end with a piece of tape. Like we did before, I'm just going to cut off some of that tape. And here's the end of my new bunch of rope. I'll tape this as well. So when we come to the material, that's just going to cover it over top and no one's going to know the difference. All right, so I'm going to stop there because I want to make sure I've got enough material left to go around and do my fun little handles or whatever kind of decorative ending I want to do. This is where I started and this is where I'm going to stop. So I'm just going to back stitch and then take this off the sewing machine. So lots of different ways you can finish off your baskets. On this particular one, I made handles. If you want to do this type of handle, then please watch my first video and you'll get great instruction on how to do these handles. Another option is for a really easy little handle that you can use for hanging or for picking up. And you just bring your cording back in and I angle this a little bit. And then you just sew back into it here and double back stitch quite a bit in here. Here's another little idea I did where I made it come up, I looped it and I sewed it together right here. And then on the other end, I just did a little spiral on the top and it just spirals around like so. On this one, I just angled it down and then just blended it in with no handle at all, just a blend. And here's my square basket that I did. And on this one, I made some fun little loops. I looped it up and down, and then I joined it here and here. I did the same thing on the other side to match it up. And then I did a little twist here and I brought it and dropped it down on the side, and then I did another little swirl and then brought it up again and swirled again and added a little butterfly. So lots of different options. Just use your imagination how you want to finish it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-design a little design here so I can measure out how much cording I have got to wrap. Basically what I'm doing is not designing, but just seeing how much cording I'm going to need to wrap, and then we'll finish it off. So I'm going to wrap that cord first, and then we'll come back and finish off that decorative finishings. There we go. So I've got, I don't know, about maybe 1.5 meters of cord wrapped here. And now I'm going to put pins, I have put pins to measure up exactly where I want to put my handle on each end so it's even. Now I'm going to sew up as normal to my pin on the end here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to not sew this to the basket, but I'm going to just sew along this whole cord now to make sure that this fabric stays intact to this cording. So I'm just going to move my basket out of the way, and we're going to guide it so it comes back into the cord. And now we can go straight all the way. So I've sewed my cording all the way to the end with my zigzag stitch. I'm not going to cut this off yet. I'm only going to remove my threads because I've been known to change my mind. Okay, so what shall we do here? We can do a multitude of different things, but maybe I'll just do something simple this time. We'll twist it this way, and I'm just watching where the center of my marking is, so I know that this little circle has to end about there. And then if I want this to come the other way, I just need to twist it the other way And now this one is coming on top. I don't want it that way. I'm going to twist it the other way, like so. And then I get it so it's on the other side. So what I'm going to do is just pin this in place, and this will be hand sewn, just to tack it in place later. So I'm just going to put a little pin in here. And I think I'm going to come back and let that drop down there. Have my 2 loops about the same size. That's about right. And then I'll pop another pin in this side. All right, so I think that might work. Just making sure I'm in the center. Okay, so now that I know what I'm going to do here, which will be hand sewn, I'm going to now start sewing from here on the machine again till I get to my other side, and I'll do the same pattern on the other side. And I'll form my other one the same as the other side. So around we go on this side, and then reverse our round so it comes back this way. Oh, I'm changing my mind again. So maybe what I'll do is I'll do a little tiny little circle in here. And then I'll attach it to the center right in here. Why not? Okay, so being that I'm going to do that, now I know I'm going to stop it right there. So I'm going to cut it off now, right here. And I know it's not going to unravel because we did that top stitching on it. Wasn't that handy? Make a nice tight little round. Making sure you've got enough. So now what I'm going to do is just place 4 pins in this little circle to hold it together. And I'm going to go onto my sewing machine. I'm going to change it to just a regular straight stitch. And I'm going to bring it in, and I'm going to sew right through the middle. Cut that off. And then I'm going to come through the other way. I've sewn through this way, and now I'm going to sew through this way. So you can place this anywhere you want. You can let that drop down now. Bring it back up like so, which is kind of pretty. I kind of like that, actually. I think I'll do that. So I'm going to let it drop down, and then we're going to tack it here. So now you're finished with the sewing machine. Everything else is hand sewed now. So I'll just put that in place here with the pin, just so I know where I want it. And I'll just get a needle and thread and we'll start doing some hand sewing. And I've got my needle threaded now. I'm going to come in through the back and just go through some of the material in the back here, just so we can get our string attached. And I'm going to go through between 2 rows, so it's not so hard to pull it through, to push it through. And then decide where I want to put it. So I think I'm going to have it so this drops down. Maybe like about so. And now I'll just come through and go over and into the center and through the basket to the inside. I got a knot, no. Make sure I've got my placement and then come back through again. Over to the next row. Find your space between 2 rows so you can get it through and pull it through. And then it's just a matter of tacking it here and there all the way around and just continue to go around. And you'll do the same for everything, tacking it here as well, and then sewing these 2 together here, and then you're done. And here's our finished fabric bowl made with the bias cut fabric strips. And as you can see, I'll zoom you right in here really close. And I don't see any fraying, or very, very little. And it looks very professional and neat and tidy. Well, I hope you enjoyed following along to make this beautiful basket with me. Let's make lots of rope bowls. Let's keep them looking professional by using those bias cut strips. And until next time, bye-bye.